Hello everyone, welcome back to Too Sweet MTG and welcome to another Cube Tuesdays. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about one of my pet cards for Cube. We're going to be talking about Loreseeker. Loreseeker is a really fun card and a really cool way of spicing up your Cube drafts. Loreseeker is too generic for an artifact creature construct. It is a 2/2. It has the ability, reveal Loreseeker as you draft it. After you draft Loreseeker, you may add a booster pack to the draft. What that means is that you get to add a whole new booster pack to the draft, and then you get a brand new pack one, pick one from that booster pack. It then gets added in to the rest of the packs in the draft and goes around and everyone else gets to draft it as well. We've spoken about some other conspiracy cards on the channel before. There's a whole video about Cogwork Librarian, links will be down in the description below. Check that one out after this one if you like this kind of thing. But they both do a similar role. Basically, they add more gameplay to the draft. It adds more decisions, it adds more fun, it adds more magic to your Cube draft. It is a truly awesome card. But how does it actually play? So basically, it is just included in your 360, in your 540, however big a cube is. It is just a card that you can draft in there. But its effect, its enter the battlefield, comes in the draft. You get its value when you draft it. There are very few cards in all of Magic that have that kind of effect. In terms of actually how it plays, what you'll generally find is that, obviously, when someone opens their pack, they'll see a Loreseeker. It's highly unlikely, if ever, that Loreseeker is going to be pack one, pick one. It's more likely, especially very early on in the draft, that you're just going to take a sensible first pick. You're going to take a broken card, something you think is cool, or a fetch land, or some colorless fixing, something like that. Basically, in the first pack, you already have the option to do a pack one, pick one. You're more likely to have a strong card in there for you to take. As people start taking cards from the pack, though, it then kind of becomes this threshold of like, what do I want? Sometimes it can be quite easy. You can be looking at a pack with nothing in your colors, nothing for your deck, and there's a Loreseeker. Sweet, I'll get another pack one, pick one. But sometimes there might be just like a fine card in your deck. Do you roll the dice at that point and then try and get a fresh new pack for you to choose from? Loreseeker is effectively a bonus pack one, pick one. That is very, very strong. When it gets taken, however, is really interesting. I generally find that these get taken between like pick 8 and pick 10. Normally when people have at least seen the pack, that's when these get drafted. But when you do draft it, it is exceptionally cool. You get a whole fresh new pack of 15 cards to look at. In pack 1, where you're building your deck, you'll just take some good cards. But in packs 2 and 3, when you're trying to pull a deck together, adding an extra booster pack to the draft to just see more cards can be really, really strong. The chances of this happening probably aren't great, but I have seen people take a Loreseeker to try and get the second half of their combo because it hasn't been opened in the cube. It's alarming in my cube how many Deceiver Exarchs have actually been opened, but I think that's a separate conversation. And what's great about this card is that it's not just the person who picks it who gets value from it. Everyone in the pod gets value from it. Everyone will get to see an additional pack. Probably the happiest person to see the Loreseeker is the person who's being passed to next from the Loreseeker. They haven't had to take the Loreseeker, but they get to look at 14 brand new shiny cards. On the flip side, the worst seat to be in a cube draft where there's a Loreseeker drafted is the person furthest away. Everyone else will get to see this whole brand new pack and take from it. Well, basically, you end up with the dregs of the pack. That does create a nice little bit of tension because you do really want to be the person seeing as many cards from that pack as possible. Like I said, the person being passed the pack next really likes it when you open a Loreseeker. The person who is getting the pack last really won't like it because everyone else is getting additional value over them. That decision tree of like holding your nerve, how much further do I think it can go? Can it come back around a couple more so I'll get like third or fourth pick from it? That extra level of gameplay in a cube is really cool and really interesting. But whenever it's drafted, everyone at the table is happy. Everyone is glad there is an additional booster pack. It's just more cards for everyone to put towards their deck. It's more picks for everyone to choose. It's more magic. It's more cubing. That's kind of why we're here in the first place. The main downside with including it in your cube is that it's not really a creature that is going to see play. I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually play a Loreseeker. I'm not saying it's impossible, like my cube does have an artifact aggro section in it now. It is a 2-mana 2/2 artifact, like it still sacks to a tinker if your deck was light on artifacts. It's not the end of the world, but if it ever ends up in your deck, that is a bonus. Basically, you are getting all your value out of it in the draft. So kind of what Loreseeker does in a base draft, but there's a ton of stuff we haven't talked about yet. Like firstly, like how can you actually use it? So when this was designed, it was designed with limited in mind. Specifically, it was released in Conspiracy. So when it said add another booster pack, at the time in Conspiracy Draft, you added another pack of Conspiracy. To replicate that in Cube, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. Firstly, you can just open booster packs. Everyone likes opening booster packs. That could get a little pricey over time, and it also might not work with some of the synergies. But it is cool, as long as you tell people ahead of time, okay, if you draft Loreseeker, you get to open this booster pack and take picks from it. people will like that. That definitely adds a bit of chaos to things that I'm kind of all here for. If you go that way, obviously you need to make sure you have a booster pack available to be opened when someone drafts it. That could be a bit of a feel bad, actually. Someone drafting Loreseeker and then you're like, it's on the desk at home. Apologies. If Loreseeker's in here, you need to have something for them to open. What I do in my own cube is basically I will take an extra 15 cards from the cube box and shuffle it up and give it to someone, and then there, here you are, here is your pack. I do it that way because I have the cube box there because we're cubing. I have spare cards in there because mine is a 540, and unless I'm drafting with 12 people, I'm going to have spare cards there. And also, the synergies in your cube will be reflected in the pack, so it's all nice and smooth. That's kind of why I do it that way. I think that's probably the best way of doing it. As I mentioned, specifically for that to work, you need to be having extra cards in your cube available over the number of people that are drafting it. So if you regularly get 8 people, this probably won't work in a 360 cube because you're going to be using every single card. Then you will need to do a booster pack or something like that. But if you're in a 450 or a 540 or a 720, you'll have a ton of free cards that'll synergize nicely. Loreseeker is perfect there. The next way you can do it, I have not done, but I've seen people do it and it looks really cool, is you can basically custom make a pack that someone gets when they draft Loreseeker. I've seen people do this in Power Cube, where basically if you draft Loreseeker, you get a whole pack filled with power to go around the table. You get first stab at it. That makes Loreseeker actually quite a high pick there. I've seen people like Loading Ready Run do it in the past, where they make a pack of like Planeswalkers, and the only Planeswalkers are in the extra booster pack that you get with Loreseeker. The other way that I was thinking of doing it is maybe having half of a load of combos in a booster pack. Specifically combos which are harder to draft and bring together. So I don't mean like Splinter Twin Geeky Cheeky, because you have a load of different pieces for that. I mean like a card like Dark Depths, where there's a couple of ways of taking the counters off it, but there's only one copy of Dark Depths in your cube. If it's a 540 and it's too big, it means it's less likely to be opened. Same thing with like Chain of Smog, with like Saheeli Rai or like Spike Feeder. Cards that are half of combos, but there's only really one card like it that does that effect. And I know there's probably some cards that replace the ones I've spoken about, but I'm talking about ones that are like generally cubable. But by having this extra pack full of combo pieces, it lets you have those pieces in your cube, but they're not guaranteed to be open, and you can still keep your cube list quite tight. I quite like that idea. But really, you could make this pack entirely your own. You could run uncards, you could run other conspiracy cards, you could run like big things like WorldKnit that kind of warp how a deck works. That would be really interesting. Or you could run other Draft Matters cards like Loreseeker or like Agent of Acquisitions, which is quite a cool card as well. If you do decide to go the custom pack route, the main thing to obviously remember is to remove them from your cube at the end. Gather the cards from everyone to put it back in the pack so it's not shuffled in with all the other cards in the cube. A couple of things to mention before we get you out of here. Firstly, I am a big proponent of if there's anything you add to a cube that's outside of the norm, like these conspiracy cards, like these Draft Matter cards, I like to let my cube group know ahead of time. Some people will know what Loreseeker does. Some people weren't playing in 2014. They won't have played with these Draft Matters conspiracy cards because we don't see them that much in regular Magic at all anymore. So always best to let your drafters know whenever something is out of the ordinary. The other thing is that Loreseeker can make drafts take slightly longer because effectively you're adding another pack into the draft. Depending on how late in the pack it's taken, a lot of the time everyone else will have finished drafting their packs from that round, like several picks beforehand, while this pack is still going around. So while this pack is going around, it is best to just tell people like, don't look at your cards yet, don't tell people how your deck is, wait until the extra pack has gone round. That's only a little thing, and generally people are normally pleased at the fact that they get more cards for their deck, so it all ends up going really well. I hope that's got people thinking about what they could do with this card. I'd actually really like to hear from people if they run Loreseeker in their cubes. Do they have custom card packages to run just for Loreseeker? Do they add cards from their cube? What do you do? Let me know something cool. I'd be really interested to see it. But anyway, until next time, please like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.